Imagine this, you are hungry, you have had a long day, you just want to sit back and eat some pizza. Now imagine again handing over something that at the time feels almost worthless, just some strange internet tokens no one understands yet, in exchange for those pizzas. It seems harmless, right? Of course. But then years later, you realize that those same tokens would have worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That's exactly what happened in 2010 when a man named Laszlo Hanyecz traded 10,000 bitcoins. I come again, 10,000 bitcoins for 2 pizzas. On the surface, it sounds insane. People today shake their heads, laugh and say that guy must be full of regrets. But to really understand the story, you have to go back to the early days of Bitcoin. Because if you look at things from the standpoint of today, you might think the guy is foolish, not knowing what really happened. Because what happened that day is significant to the history and what Bitcoin has become today. And in that moment, Laszlo didn't just buy dinner, he made history. So who was this man? Laszlo Hanyecz was a Florida-based programmer and one of the earliest people to believe in Bitcoin. In 2010, Bitcoin wasn't anything close to what it is today. It was a strange project created the year before by the mysterious figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Digital money that wasn't controlled by any government or bank. Instead, it relied on a decentralized network and cryptography to function. Back then, hardly anyone took it seriously. Most people had never even heard of Bitcoin, and even those who had thought it was just an interesting tech experiment. The value of Bitcoin was less than a cent. You couldn't buy anything with it. In fact, it's worthless. There were no exchanges where you could easily swap Bitcoins for dollars, and certainly no online store accepting it. Bitcoin existed, but it didn't have a purpose in the real world yet. Laszlo wanted to change that. He believed that for Bitcoin to be taken seriously, it had to actually be used, not just traded back and forth on computers. And so he came up with an idea. He posted on a Bitcoin forum saying, I will pay 10,000 Bitcoins if someone will order me 2 pizzas. To him, it wasn't about the price. It was about providing that Bitcoin could work as money, real money that could buy something tangible. Eventually, someone took him up on the offer. A fellow Bitcoin enthusiast in England contacted him, paid for the pizzas with a credit card, and then delivered it to his house. In return, Laszlo sent 10,000 Bitcoins. The pizzas arrived hot and cheesy, and with that simple meal, the very first documented purchase using Bitcoin had taken place. At the time, those 10,000 Bitcoin, it worth about $30. Nothing usual, nothing crazy, just a guy enjoying his meal with his family. But fast forward nearly a decade, and the numbers start to look almost unbelievable. By 2019, those 10,000 Bitcoin were worth around $187 million. I come again, $187 million. And today, their value had climbed into the billions. That means the pizzas Laszlo bought in 2010 are often called the most expensive pizzas in history. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. People often assume Laszlo must be crushed by that decision, that he must wake up every day filled with regret. But when asked about it, Laszlo has always been surprisingly calm, no worries at all. In his words, he was just happy to prove Bitcoin would actually be used as real money. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he never saw those 10,000 Bitcoins as wasted. Instead, he saw them as an investment in showing the world that digital currency could work in everyday life. Think about it. Before that pizza deal, Bitcoin was still just numbers on the screen. Afterwards, it was something more. People will point to it and say, look, you can actually buy things with this stuff. That single act gave Bitcoin legitimacy in a way nothing else could at the time. In fact, the crypto community still celebrates Bitcoin Pizza Day every year on March 22nd, marking the anniversary of Laszlo's legendary purchase. But let's pause for a second and really imagine what 10,000 Bitcoin means today. If you had 10,000 Bitcoin in 2010, it was basically worthless. You couldn't sell it, you couldn't spend it, and no one outside a tiny group of computer enthusiasts even cared about it. But if you held onto those 10,000 Bitcoin until now, today, you would be one of the richest people alive. More money than most people could ever dream of in an entire lifetime. All for 2 pizzas. It almost sounds like a cruel joke. Yet this story isn't really about loss, it's about vision. Laszlo didn't throw away a fortune. He created a moment in history. And without moments like that, Bitcoin might never have become what it is today. That's the irony. By losing those Bitcoins, he helped make the currency valuable for everyone else. But there is another layer to this story. In those early days, Laszlo wasn't the only one spending large amounts of Bitcoin for small things. Other early users would trade thousands of coins just to prove it work, buying small trinkets or online services. They didn't think of it as throwing away wealth because at the time there was no wealth to throw away. Those early transactions were acts of faith, proof of concept, moments that turned a wild idea into reality. Now let's talk about the psychology of it. Imagine you were Laszlo. Years later, you are watching Bitcoin explode in value and the world is suddenly obsessed with it. People are becoming millionaires, even billionaires off a currency you once used to buy pizza. Would you feel regret or pride? Laszlo has said he chose pride. He doesn't see himself as unlucky, but rather as someone who helped build the foundation of one of the biggest financial revolutions of our time. What makes this story compelling is not about money. It's about being part of something before anyone else could see its value. It's about the difference between thinking short term and thinking long term. Most people today would probably hold on to those Bitcoins, imagine the riches they could bring. But if everyone had done that, Bitcoin might never have gotten off the ground. Without real transactions, it would have remained a curiosity, never proving its worth in the real life world. So the next time someone joke about the guy who bought pizza with Bitcoin, remember this: those pizzas were more than just a dinner, they were history in the making. Without them, the story of Bitcoin might have been very different today. And this brings us to the end of the story. If you enjoy this story, then you will love this particular video about a young guy named Cesar who took his own life due to an AI chatbot. Can you imagine that? And also remember, on this channel we post twice a week, Monday and Friday. See you in the next one, and remain Joshua Dejo.